we're walking through the PUC forest, I'm noticing a lot of different types of trees that are back here. Can you tell me a little bit about some of them or describe some of them?
Yes, we have a number of different trees here in the forest behind me and all around us. And in some cases, they are very tall. And so a lot of the times what you do is you use their bark, what the bark looks like, and also if you can find the leaf, and perhaps the leaves are far too high up for you to grab, but usually there's going to be a similar species pretty close to where that is. And so I can show you a couple of the trees, look at their bark and look at their leaves so that you can tell the difference between those. And one of the ways that you identify black oak is by looking at its leaves, which have this scalloped edge. It's described as lobate. It has these lobes, and generally large leaves and pretty thin, which is unique to this sort of oak. A lot of the oaks in California have much smaller and thicker leaves. This is a trunk of black oak, and this is its bark, and so it has this nice puzzle pieces, fairly small pieces in comparison to other trees. I'm standing in front of a Pacific Madrone, and Pacific Madrone is a plant that's very unique because it has very thin, smooth bark, and it has this red-pink color. In older parts of a madrone tree, this one is very old, the bark starts to look like what we expect of bark, more of those puzzle pieces. So the madrone leaves are very dark green and have a shininess to them. They are a lot larger than you might expect of a plant like this that actually does really well in dry conditions. But the leaf itself has a lot of control so that it doesn't lose too much water. And you can see the branches that the leaves are on, that the old bark is starting to peel off and new bark is being produced underneath it. So this is a Ponderosa pine, and Ponderosa pine, like Doug fir, grow to be very tall, but they look very different. Perhaps it's not very obvious to you. It has big puzzle pieces like we see here. I'm standing next to the trunk, but the puzzle pieces are more uniform. There's long kind of chunks of bark as they move up, and that's unique to Ponderosa pine, at least in comparison to other trees in California and in Northern California. And now I'm standing underneath a Doug fir tree, a Douglas fir, and it is very, very tall. These get up to several hundred feet tall, 200 feet and more. But nearby are a bunch of smaller Doug fir, and we can look more closely at their characteristics so that I can show you how to distinguish a Doug fir from other plants. So the Doug fir has very, very large puzzle pieces or chunks of bark. This is a very old tree.
Aimee, how do you tell how old a tree is?
Well, what you would do is you would take a core sample, and so there's this device. It's somewhat like a needle that you push in, and you take a very small piece that goes all the way to the very center, and you pull out a chunk of the wood, and then you bring that into a laboratory. You can do it actually just here out in the forest if you wanted to. And you would look and you could see and count up what are called tree rings. And each of those lines or rings indicate a year of growth. And of course, you could also cut down the tree entirely, which we wouldn't want to do. but you could look at that as well. If you ever see a trunk that's been cut down, then you look on top and you look at these rings, and they are smaller and smaller as you get to the middle. In the very middle is where the plant started, and then each of those rings as it grew was captured in time. We talked about Douglas fir and Ponderosa pine, and not only do they have differences in their bark and in their leaves, but they also have very distinct differences in their cones. So on your right is the Doug fir cone. It's actually held like that from the tree. And the other one is a Ponderosa pine cone. And we're lucky to see this Ponderosa pine cone in this form because we beat the squirrel to it.
Do squirrels eat the pine cone?
They don't eat the pine cone, but they eat the seeds that are sandwiched in between the individual pieces of the cone. And to make it easier to get to the seeds, they basically pull away at the cone pieces to get down to those seeds, which they really, really like to eat. So here's a pine cone from the Ponderosa pine before, and here's one after a squirrel has gotten to it. So this one used to look like the other one, but as that little animal, that little rodent, was getting at those seeds, it pulled those pieces of cone away, and it basically tore it to shreds.
Looks like a hungry squirrel.
Yes, he was a very happy squirrel after he ate this.
Aimee, as I'm standing here, there seems to be so many different types of trees and so much diversity here. Is that a good thing for a forest to have?
Definitely yes. So we're seeing the biggest plants. There's a lot of other species of plant and animals that we're not able to see while we're out here right now. And so all of the different animals and plants that live together are really important for the forest to be healthy. Just think about you having your fruits and vegetables and your protein, whatever dinner that you have, you want a mix of things on your plate. And so when there's a lot of different types of species of plant and animal, they all work together and help each other. The plants most of the time are food for the animals, which sounds kind of mean, but the plants make do. They're able to withstand being eaten by animals for the most part. And they also have the effect of being a home for animals. A lot of birds, of course, and insects and other organisms use those plants as their home. I would say one of the best explanations for why there is biodiversity is based in the Bible. God created all of these things for humans to enjoy so that we could come out in nature like this and to enjoy the beauty, the quietness, and then also I think trees might be really tall because what do we do when we look at a tree? But we look up. And so when we look up, what also are we looking up at but up at heaven? And so I think that's one way that God helps to encourage us to look up and to ask for Him in our lives and allow Him to direct our lives.
Aimee, thank you so much for taking the time today to teach us a little bit about the PUC forest.
You are very welcome. It was my pleasure. I always really enjoy showing people the plants and the animals in the forest here at PUC. And if you or your family are ever here at PUC and want to go on a hike, just let me know. I'd be happy to do that. And I hope that you have a great summer and enjoy camp meeting, even though you're not able to be on site. Enjoy each other and your community and stay safe and healthy, and blessings to you.
Hello all, and thank you for watching
This
2020 virtual Redwood Area Camp Meeting video.
We are striving to reach the needed YouTube subscriptions
so that we can change the name to something a human would understand.
Please visit the website for
what is coming up.
Don't forget to sign up for
Announcements on the website.
Please consider helping us with
our budget needs for this year,
so we can be ready for camp next year.
Please keep our camp
in your prayers
as we traverse
these trying times.
We can always use
your help at the camp
if you want to come
and put your skills to use.
Once again, thank you so much
for joining us, and we look forward
to getting together again in 2021.